Jiang Country Qingyun sect. On the hazy white jade square filled with immortal energy, hundreds of young boys and girls sat cross-legged, motionless. Their eyes were closed tight, faces donned various expressions. Some wore expressions of rage, others were covered in fear, some were ecstatic, while others appeared inconsolably sad. Hiss! Among the crowd, Lu Chengsheng groaned softly. His eyes snapped open, and he instinctively clutched his forehead. Deep within his brain, bursts of memory flooded out like a deluge, battering against his mind. With these recollections, Lu Chengsheng understood what had happened. He had traveled through time. He'd arrived in a world of fantasy and immortality. But for 18 years, he had not awakened the mystery within the womb. Not until today, during the 4th stage of Qingyun sect's immortal sect assessment, the trial of heart, where he awakened his past life's memories. Someone has awakened so quickly, their Dao heart is top-notch. Not far off, several examiners from Qingyun sect were surprised to see Lu Chengsheng awaken. The trial of heart is the 4th stage of the Qingyun sect's assessment, testing one's Dao heart. It is to say, one's state of mind and will. Lu Chengsheng, because of the awakening of his past life's memories, was the first to awaken from it. Lu Chengsheng, 9th grade spiritual root, 18 years old, such a pity. He only displayed mediocre perseverance in the 2nd stage, yet to have such a Dao heart, strange indeed. With a Dao heart like that, if he had a 7th grade spiritual root, even at 18, he would be considered a decent immortal seedling. A 9th grade spiritual root at that age has limited potential. No matter how resolute the Dao heart, it is of no use. After reviewing Lu Chengsheng's information, many people showed signs of regret. Lu Chengsheng naturally couldn't hear the immortal master's evaluations. He was fully immersed in the sea of his mind. As his memories of his past life awakened, the all-but guaranteed system for transmigrators also accrued. The multiple blessing system. As the name implies, the more offspring, the greater the blessings. These blessings don't refer to intangible good fortune, but real, tangible benefits. According to the system's information, there are currently 2 benefits. Firstly, there are numerous achievement rewards with regards to offspring. As long as achievements are triggered, the system will grant rewards. Secondly, the spiritual root talent and cultivation level of his offspring will all be multiplied onto him, their father. Moreover, the offspring of his descendants, talent and cultivation level will also add to his own. However, it will not add as much as his immediate children's. With every generation, the bonus reduces by 50%. This feels like a child-rearing game, giving birth to children, nurturing them, unlocking achievements, receiving rewards. However, with this system in place, doesn't it mean my spiritual root talent can also improve? As long as my descendants have good talent and high cultivation level, I will soar right alongside them, perhaps even ascend to immortality while lying down. After getting to grasp his system completely, Lu Chengsheng's emotions stirred, and he was incredibly excited. In this world, the first step to cultivation is to possess a spiritual root. And spiritual roots are categorized into 9 grades. 9th to 7th grade are considered lower grade. 6th to 4th grade are middle grade. 3rd to 1st grade are high grade. Above 1st grade, there are the earth spirit root, heavenly spiritual root, and other rare mutant spiritual roots. In the 1st stage of the assessment, the talent test, Lu Chengsheng discovered that he had only a 9th grade spiritual root. It was the worst kind of spiritual root. To cultivate immortality was extremely difficult, and his future achievements were limited. But now, with the system, the multiple blessing system, Lu Chengsheng felt that his path to becoming an immortal was not so bleak. Just by having many children and cultivating them well, with effort building a large family, he could ascend as the patriarch lying down. Dad, Mom, don't leave. It's fake, it was just an illusion. Ha ha ha, I did it, I became an immortal. No, this is fake, don't try to fool me. At that moment, the boys and girls on the trial of heart gradually woke up. As if they had experienced a nightmare, they cried out, interrupting Lu Chengsheng's train of thought. Lu Chengsheng, when did you wake up? The few people next to him were surprised to see that Lu Chengsheng had already awakened. I've just woken up a little while ago too. Lu Chengsheng replied, taking in the 3 young men and 2 women before him. Hangya, 16 years old, 8th grade spiritual root, the son of a marquis. Henlin, 15 years old, 7th grade spiritual root, born to a blacksmith. Li Feiyu, 18 years old, 7th grade spiritual root, young gang leader of the Crimson Whale Gang. Zhao Ziyu, 15 years old, 4th grade spiritual root, young lady from a scholarly family. Zhao Qingqing, 16 years old, 6th grade spiritual root, born to a physician. These 5, like him, were all immortal seedlings brought in by the secular branch of the Qingyun sect. On the way, they had come to know each other quite well. However, this familiarity was nothing more than banding together for warmth in an unfamiliar environment. The disparities in the backgrounds of the 5 were too great to allow for much common ground in conversation. Only Han Lin and Lu Chengsheng hit it off somewhat better. Since Lu Chengsheng came from a farmer's family, he found it easier to talk to Han Lin. I seem to be the first one to wake up. I wonder if I can enter an immortal sect. Lu Chengsheng, watching the others gradually wake up around him, pondered in his heart. Even with a system by his side, he still hoped to be accepted into the Qingyun sect. Because he was merely a common farmer by birth, it was only by a fortuitous chance that he had obtained an opportunity for cultivation and was led to the Qingyun sect's assessment. If he couldn't join the Qingyun sect, pursuing cultivation would be extremely difficult. Cultivation requires wealth, companions, techniques, and land, none of which can be lacking. Wealth needs no explanation. In both the secular world and the cultivation world, money is always of the utmost importance. Companion refers to fellow Taoists' companions. Technique refers to cultivation techniques, the teachings of others. The last, land, refers to the place of cultivation. In ordinary mortal regions, without spirit veins, and where spiritual energy is sparse and barren, cultivation progresses very slowly. If one can enter the Qingyun sect, at least in the initial stages, one would have wealth, companions, techniques, and land, all in place. This is why countless people yearn to be accepted into an immortal sect. Those whose names are called step forward. Before long, as everyone on the Inquiry Heart stage woke up, an executor from the Qingyun sect floated in the air, took out a jade scroll, and began to announce the list of successful candidates. Jusan Zio Yuan, Hanlin Zio Ziyu Zhao Qingqing. Names were called one after another. SEAR letter 1D04 H the N O circumflex letter 1D20 EL fire. NYT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Those whose names were called were beyond excited, brimming with joy, and full of longing for their future as immortals. Those whose names were not called sank deeper into a heavy mood, fraught with disappointment. Is that it? Li Feiyu, seeing the Qingyun sect executor put away the list, showed a face of unwillingness. How could my name not be on the list? Hung Yi also bit his lip tightly. His complexion turned pale as he struggled to believe it. Although he possessed an 8th grade spiritual root, he was of noble birth and had previously spent connections and money to facilitate his acceptance. Sigh. Lu Chengsheng, seeing that his name was not included, also sighed, feeling somewhat heavy-hearted. Still, with the system, the blow wasn't too hard to bear. Next to him, some people were crying out loud in distress at this moment. The rest of you, leave the sect gate immediately. The Qingyun sect executor stated indifferently. Following that, with a sweep of his sleeve, a cloud of auspicious mist appeared beneath the feet of those chosen, and they rose up into the clouds and departed. The several hundred remaining all wore bitter expressions and left with reluctance. Once you step out of this gate, you and I shall lead different lives. Between immortals and mortals, 2 separate paths unfold. As they left the gates of the Qingyun sect, many voiced their emotions, crying out loud. Failing to be accepted into an immortal sect, even if they embarked on the journey of cultivation, they would only be loose cultivators. Their fates would drastically differ from those of immortal sect disciples. Hung Ye too looked regretfully at the Qingyun sect, shrouded in immortal mists and suffused with rosy clouds, sighing continually. Previously on the journey, he had even courted Zai Yue. But now Zai Yue, having been confirmed to have a 4th grade spiritual root, was successfully accepted into the Qingyun sect while he was eliminated. She instantly became a being he could only long for and not reach. His noble status as a prince no longer mattered before the disciples of an immortal sect. Even Han Lin, whom he had previously looked down upon, and Zhao Qingqing, whom he had thought little of, were now beings he would have to look up to after being admitted into the Qingyun sect. What should I do next? Lu Chengsheng glanced once more at the mountain gate of the Qingyun sect, took a deep breath, and pondered the path ahead. Although he had the system with him, it was not simple to exploit it. There was an initial accumulation phase. It required constant marrying and fathering children, then raising and nurturing them. The expenditure of time, money, and effort involved was not a small figure. For him, at this moment, it was rather difficult. Even though he had a spiritual root, he was just an ordinary farmer with nothing to his name. If he couldn't join an immortal sex power, this spiritual route wouldn't be worth much. Just as everyone was descending the mountain, an elegantly dressed man in his 30s or 40s, wearing a green robe, approached and observing those leaving, spoke up. Esteemed young friends, the Lu family of Kingju Mountain is now seeking 20 sons-in-law, offering access to spiritual vein-blessed lands and cultivation manuals. Would anyone be interested? A marriage proposal. Providing access to a spiritual vein-blessed land and a cultivation manual. Those who had been eliminated and had to leave the mountain stirred with excitement upon hearing the words of the man in green. When Lu Changsheng heard this, his heart was also moved. Through his recent analysis, he concluded that if he could join a cultivation power, it would naturally be the best option. As for the marriage proposal, becoming someone's son-in-law was no big deal. Cultivating, well, it wasn't disgraceful. However, he didn't speak up, opting to wait and observe instead. After all, there were no such things as pies falling from the sky. He didn't know anything about the situation with the Lu family of Kingju Mountain. Who knew what the specifics behind this marriage proposal were, if it was a mere facade? May I ask, Senior, what are the requirements for your son-in-law? I remember that cultivation families usually don't nurture foreign bloodlines, right? Immediately, someone in the crowd asked. Among those who had been eliminated, there were many offspring of nobles, merchants, and even loose cultivators, who had a certain understanding of the cultivation world. Since my young friend asked, Lu, will not conceal it but will speak candidly. In recent years, my Lu family has lost quite a number of its youngsters, leading to a generational gap. That's why we have made this exception to take in sons-in-law to replenish fresh bloodlines. As for the requirements, within 20 years you must father 50 offspring. If you father one with a middle-grade spiritual root, or 3 with lower-grade spiritual roots, you'll be deemed to have completed the task. During this period, not only will my Lu family provide you with a spiritual vein dojo and cultivation techniques, but you will also receive a certain quota of cultivation resources every month. The man in green said to the crowd, his face gentle and scholarly as he spoke slowly. However, as soon as these words were spoken, many in the audience felt this was not a call for sons-in-law. It was tantamount to looking for breeding pigs, soliciting people for reproduction. After all, heterosexual relations were known to greatly deplete vital energy and essence. For cultivators, even more so. They had been eliminated by Qingyun's sect and were already of limited potential. If they were to engage in such activities daily, their prospects in cultivation would probably be very limited, with little hope for significant accomplishments. Lu Changsheng also twitched the corners of his lips slightly upon hearing this. Indeed, fathering 50 children in 20 years seemed somewhat excessive. Even if one were to father one child a year, there wouldn't be 50 in 20 years. It appeared that the Lu family's call for sons-in-law wasn't one-on-one. Each candidate might be matched with 3 or 4 wives. However, the more he thought about it, the more it seemed like not something he couldn't accept. Upon further reflection, Lu Changsheng even felt it was quite appealing and appropriate for him. Not only would he have a place for cultivation, but he would also get wives and assistance with raising children. It perfectly resolved the difficulties of his system's initial stage. Moreover, hearing such stringent requirements, Lu Changsheng felt somewhat relieved. If the conditions weren't harsh, how would these eliminated folks like him have a chance to join a cultivation family? Hong Ye, who was beside him, saw a hint of interest on Lu Changsheng's face and spoke. Lu Changsheng, I have heard about the Lu family of Kingju Mountain. They are a proper cultivation family with a foundation establishment ancestor within their ranks. And indeed, as he said, they fought a large battle with the Chen family of Red Leaf Valley over a spirit stone mine a few years ago, resulting in heavy losses of their young and strong. If you have nowhere else to go, this could be an option for you, Hong Ye said. Previously, he had been haughty and somewhat dismissive of Lu Changsheng, Han Lin, and Zhao Qingqing due to his own status. But now that Han Lin and Zhao Qingqing had entered Qingyun's sect while he was eliminated, his pride had all but dissipated, and he started to face reality. He realized that once they embarked on the path to immortality, the gap between princes, generals, merchants, or servants would not be as significant. If Lu Changsheng were to join a cultivation family, even if his future achievements were modest, he would still be another friend and another connection. Thank you for the reminder, Brother Hong, Lu Changsheng said, his remaining anxieties ebbing away after hearing this. He felt becoming a son-in-law of the Lu family was a very sensible choice for the time being. With the system in hand, as long as he could get through the early phase, the sky would be the limit. Right then, Lu Changsheng stepped forward to sign up. Brother Lu, let's do this together. SE a small kapar letter 1D04HTH Cyrillicua E to oval fire. ETA website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. At this moment, Li Feiyu, as if making a difficult decision, spoke up. Brother Li, you want to join the Lu family as well. Hongyu was somewhat surprised to see Li Feiyu choosing to join the Lu family. Lu Changsheng was of peasant origin, which he could understand. But Li Feiyu came from the Crimson Whale Gang, a sizable faction, and as the vice gang leader, he had decent conditions. Yet, he was willing to become this sort of son-in-law who serves like a breeding partner. Life is but a dream of 100 years. Once a chance for cultivation presents itself, it cannot be missed. Li Feiyu said in a deep voice. Insiders knew the state of their own affairs. Although the Crimson Whale Gang was not bad, it wasn't solely his father's decision to make. They also couldn't provide too much wealth for his cultivation. If he were to return, his future might be to take over his father's position as the gang leader and live out an ordinary life. But knowing that he had a spiritual root and could cultivate, he was unwilling to go back. He had once seen his own father kowtow in front of a cultivator. He knew that no matter how high one's status in the secular world, or how advanced one's martial skills, they were nothing but ants in the eyes of a cultivator. So even if it was difficult, as long as there was a glimmer of opportunity, he would strive to pursue it. At least he would have no regrets in the future. Then I wish Brother Li and Brother Lu an auspicious cultivation journey. If there's anything in the future, feel free to send a letter to Ruyi Marquis Mansion. Hong Yi also understood the reasoning and didn't try to persuade them further, bowing in farewell. Being of noble birth, he would still have some financial resources at home and could continue with his cultivation, so he needn't become a dependent son-in-law. Suddenly, Lu Changsheng and Li Feiyu came before the man in green clothes, indicating their willingness to join the Lu family. Upon hearing that Lu Changsheng only possessed a 9th-grade spiritual root, the man in green showed a hint of hesitation. Because the better the spiritual root, the greater the probability and higher the grade that the offspring will possess one. However, seeing that Lu Changsheng and Li Feiyu were together, and with Li Feiyu having a 7th-grade spiritual root, he still nodded his head. Have you thought this through? Once you go to Qingzhou Mountain, there's no turning back and you'll need to sign a contract. If you cannot meet the conditions within 20 years, not only will you have to compensate 3 times the resources, but you'll also serve the Lu family for 10 years. The man in green said seriously. We've made our decision. Lu Changsheng and Li Feiyu exchanged glances and nodded in agreement. About half an hour later, all 20 sons-in-law were recruited. All were youths with humble backgrounds and no notable connections. Not only those of noble birth could not lower their status to do this, but the man in green clothes also didn't want anyone with a significant background. My name is Lu Yuending, and I am the patriarch of the Lu family. From now on, you can address me as family head. Now follow me back to Qingzhou Mountain. Lu Yuending said to Lu Changsheng and the others. He then took out a golden thread-bordered pouch and opened its mouth. A series of white lights flew out from within, transforming into majestic horses with golden manes and sturdy limbs, the color of bright yellow. Ride horses. Many people were taken aback upon seeing these horses. Previously, an executor from Qingyun sect had simply waved his sleeves, and those selected were mounted on auspicious clouds and flew away. And now, following Lu Yuending, they could only ride horses. Lu Changsheng also felt that now that they were cultivators, riding horses seemed rather low. These are no ordinary horses. They are spiritual horses bred by the Lu family, able to travel 1,000 miles in a day, and you'll manage even if you don't know how to ride. Seeing the crowd's disappointment, Lu Yuending explained. He had no other choice. The Lu family was but a small clan. Although they possessed a magic flying boat, it wouldn't be used lightly on normal days. Speaking of flying with others, it was even more out of the question. With his 8th-level energy refinement cultivation, even flying on his own would strain his spiritual power during long-distance travel, let alone flying with others. With so many people, riding horses was the most convenient and fastest way. And so, Lu Changsheng and the rest mounted the spiritual horses and left with Lu Yuending. At the foot of Qingyun sect's mountain, 5 cultivators from the Lu family were waiting, accompanying them to prevent unexpected events on the road. Night had fallen. Lu Yuending led a group of people to rest outside in the wilderness. And one had to admit, these spiritual steeds were indeed incomparable to ordinary horses. Lu Changsheng didn't know how to ride, but even after a day of travel, he didn't feel very tired. May I ask the Lu family head, How long will it take to reach Kingju Mountain? At this moment, a young man inquired. These spiritual steeds can cover 1,000 miles a day. At this pace, it will take just over half a month to reach Kingju Mountain. Lu Yuanding answered. 1,000 miles a day. Just over half a month. Hearing these words, everyone exchanged glances with rather unpleasant expressions on their faces. Lu Chengsheng was also left somewhat speechless. It was incredibly far indeed. Lu Yuanding seemed oblivious to the grim looks on everyone's faces. He took out a porcelain bottle and said, "Half a month will pass by quickly. These are fasting pills. After eating one, you will not feel hunger for a month. Come, one for each person." Saying this, he distributed a fasting pill to each person. Lu Chengsheng looked at the soybean-sized brown elixir in his hand a few times, and without thinking too much, swallowed it directly. Now that he was on board, he'd have to eat the elixir even if it were poisoned. Moreover, there was no need for the Lu family to harm them. After consuming the fasting pills, during the rest period, several young men began to sit cross-legged to cultivate, clearly already possessing cultivation techniques. Li Feiyu, on the other hand, went to one side to practice martial arts alone. Through earlier conversations, Lu Chengsheng learned that Li Feiyu, the young deputy leader of the Crimson Whale gang, was highly skilled in martial arts. Being just 18 years old, he was already considered a top-tier expert in the martial world. After resting for about 3 or 4 hours, the group continued on their way. And so it went. In the monotonous grind of traveling, half a month passed by. Brace yourselves, we're about to arrive at Kingju Mountain. Lu Yuanding, riding a spiritual steed on the official road, called out to the listless youths behind him. After half a month of monotonous travel, everyone had become numb, their bodies and minds exhausted. Lu Chengsheng appeared listless as well. In his past life, simply sitting in a car for a day left him feeling uncomfortable. Let alone traveling by horse for half a month. Hearing Lu Yuanding's words that they were soon arriving at Kingju Mountain, everyone's spirits were visibly lifted. The days of hardship were finally coming to an end. The 5 accompanying cultivators from the Lu family also breathed a sigh of relief. Their mission for venturing out was a family task to ensure the safe homecoming of the immortal seedlings. However, just at that moment, suddenly, whoosh, 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 several dozen crystalline, sharp ice cones erupted from the ground nearby, shooting towards Lu Chengsheng and the others with fierce momentum. No good, we're under attack. Upon seeing this, Lu Yuanding's expression changed drastically, and he shouted in anger. At the same time, he stretched out his hand, fingers spread wide, casting out balls of fire radiating intense heat to intercept the ice cones. Protect the immortal seedlings. The other 5 Lu family cultivators also used their abilities, creating earthen walls and water barriers to shield Lu Chengsheng and the rest of the immortal seedlings. However, faced with so many ice cones, 3 immortal seedlings were still pierced through their chests and fell from their spiritual steeds with a thump, lifeless. So this is the cultivation world. Lu Chengsheng looked at the horrifying scene, couldn't help swallowing, and his complexion turned slightly pale. He might have been a person from another world, but neither in his previous life nor in this one had he ever witnessed such slaughter. This was his first time. At this moment, he gained a clear understanding of the cruelty of the cultivation world. Ha ha ha, Lu Yuanding, did you think you could take these immortal seedlings back without asking my Chen family? From within the earth, one cultivator after another burst forth. The leader was a tall, middle-aged man, dressed in a crimson robe. Chen Shuasheng, you dare to run rampant within the boundary of Kingju Mountain. Seeing the man in the red robe, Lu Yuanding shouted coldly. He naturally recognized the other party. It was their nemesis, the Chen family patriarch of the Red Leaf Valley, from the Lu family of Kingju Mountain. But he had not expected the latter to dare to launch a sneak attack right at their doorstep. However, it was indeed the best time for the opposition to set an ambush. Everyone was not only exhausted, but also had their guard down. While speaking, he quickly burned a yellow talisman in his hand. It was a transmission talisman, requesting aid from the family. Quick battle, quick decision, kill. Chen Shuasheng let out a cold laugh, his lips moving slightly as he clapped his hands forward, bringing forth biting coldness and conjuring sharp ice spikes that flew towards Lu Yuanding. And the 10 cultivators behind him also took action, attacking the immortal seedlings including Lu Chengsheng. Their target was not to kill the members of the Lu family, but the immortal seedlings. Boom, boom, boom. The 2 sides began a clash. The Chen family had the advantage in numbers, and therefore had the upper hand. Coupled with the Lu family's need to protect the immortal seedlings, they were at a disadvantage and immediately fell behind. Just then, a cyan wind blade shot forth, breaking through the Lu family's defenses and slicing one of the immortal seedlings next to Lu Changsheng in half. Blood splattered and sprayed onto Lu Changsheng, causing his mind to go blank. "Be careful." Another wind blade broke through the defenses and shot towards Lu Changsheng. But Li Feiyu, quick-eyed and agile, leapt up and tackled Lu Changsheng to the ground, dodging the attack. "Thank you, Brother Li." Lu Changsheng came back to his senses, his heart still racing with fear. If it weren't for Li Feiyu's timely move, the wind blade would have struck him, and he would have undoubtedly died. As a transmigrator with a system, it would have been truly frustrating to die in such a manner. After witnessing the cruelty of this world, Lu Changsheng, although scared, found his desire to cultivate even stronger. In this world where the law of the jungle prevails, without strength, you're nothing but an ant, your life is fragile as a blade of grass. Woo-woo, cultivation is too dangerous, I want to go home. Please let me go, this has nothing to do with me. Run, staying here is just waiting for death. Seeing the Lu family members at a disadvantage and several immortal seedlings slain, some seedlings begged for mercy while others chose to flee. However, no sooner had two of them left the protection of the Lu family than they were killed by fireballs, wind blades, and ice spikes, deterring anyone else from running. At this moment, Lu Changsheng and the others were like lambs waiting for slaughter, only praying that the Lu family could hold on. Fortunately, before long, sounds of the air being pierced could be heard. Figures flew from Qingzhou Mountain towards them. "Go!" Realizing that reinforcements from the Lu family had arrived, Chen Shuisheng did not hesitate, made a quick decision, and immediately led his people to escape. "Daddy, are you all right?" At that moment, a woman dressed in a snow-white gown quickly descended from the sky to Lu Yuending's side. Her voice sounded like a babbling brook, and her face was full of concern. She was delicately beautiful with a slender figure, graceful in every movement. Her white gown fluttered, revealing a small stretch of round, jade-like snow-white legs, resembling a goddess descending to the mortal realm, causing the immortal seedlings who had just narrowly escaped death door to be lost in trance. Lu Changsheng was no exception. Having experienced the onslaught of beauties in the age of the internet in his previous life, he thought he would not be surprised. But upon seeing the woman in white, he was taken aback by her beauty. Her forehead was like a painting, her eyes deep as autumn waters, her nose high and proud, lips red as rosy dawn, with skin white as jade perfectly embodying dazzling eyes and ivory skin. What moved people most was the temperament of the woman. Ethereal and elegant, like an immortal, she was reminiscent of a snow lotus from the heavenly mountains, standing unworldly and independent. If it weren't for the concern on her face, she would seem an ethereal fairy untouched by the mortal realm. If I were to marry into the Lu family and have children with such a woman, I wouldn't mind having 50, no, 100 children, Lu Changsheng thought to himself. But he knew it was impossible. As the daughter of the family head, how could she possibly marry a breeding son-in-law like them? It was a dream that could only be realized in his sleep. "My age father's fine just drained of spiritual power," said Lu Yuending, waving his hand to his daughter. "Lu Myoj." The young men engraved the name of this extraordinary and ethereal woman in their hearts. Lu Changsheng also remembered the name. The other arriving members of the Lu family also descended, relieved to find Lu Yuending and the others mostly unharmed, with only 8 immortal seedlings dead. They didn't take it too heavily to heart. The death of 8 immortal seedlings was regrettable, but not something to grieve overly about. After all, the Lu family had not yet invested much in these seedlings. Soon after, the group safely made it to Qingzhou Mountain. Qingzhou Mountain is not a single mountain, but a range filled with crystal-clear, translucent green bamboo. Upon entering the mountain, Lu Changsheng could clearly feel that the air was much fresher and more humid. There were streams in the mountain valleys and colorful birds chirping, with terraced fields on some slopes cultivating grains and vegetables, much like a utopian paradise. The Lu family had built a number of villages and manors throughout these mountains. Lu Changsheng and the group of immortal seedlings were settled in Qingzhou Villa, located in the outer periphery. Beneath Qingzhou Villa lies a first-grade spirit vein. From now on, you will live here and focus on your cultivation. Rest assured that as long as you fulfill the previously agreed-upon conditions, you're free to leave the Lu family or stay in the future. Uncle Fu settled them in. After giving some brief instructions, Lu Yuending left. "I am in charge of Qingzhou Villa, you can call me Uncle Fu. Come with me now," he said. Uncle Fu was an old man with gray hair and a slightly stooped body. After introducing himself, he led everyone to go through the formalities and also introduced them to various aspects of Kingju Villa. Kingju Villa was vast, home not only to them, but also to the Lu family's own immortal seedlings who were cultivating there. However, they were mostly collateral family members with average talent. If anyone had exceptional talent, they would usually reside in the core area of Kingju Mountain, where the concentration of spiritual energy was much thicker due to a second-grade spirit vein. Along the way, the group saw many Lu family disciples. These people also looked at Lu Changsheng and the others curiously, as if watching monkeys, with a hint of disdain and arrogance in their eyes. Regarding this, Lu Changsheng was quite calm. To put it nicely, they were sons-in-law who had married into the family from different ethnic groups. To put it unpleasantly, they were here to breed. However, through observation, he could tell that the Lu family's disciples, both male and female, were quite good-looking. This made him somewhat relieved about the subsequent breeding part. After all, who didn't hope for a good-looking partner when coming to be a son-in-law and have kids? Lu Changsheng admitted he was quite superficial. An hour later, under Uncle Fu's arrangements, Lu Changsheng and the others signed the marital contracts, processed their identity plaques, received cultivation techniques, and were allocated living quarters. The living space was a separate courtyard covering nearly 200 square meters, replete with pavilions, terraces, and towers. It was fully equipped. Lu Changsheng sat on the large bed in his room and took out the cultivation technique. Return to origin technique. Upon opening the technique manual, an image of a man in a gray robe appeared, demonstrating poses and began explaining in detail how to cultivate. Worthy of being a cultivation method, it even has video functionality. Lu Changsheng couldn't help but admire the manual in his hands for a few moments. He couldn't figure out how the book projected the image and produced sound, but found it quite magical. Following the guidance of the figure in the manual, he began to try cultivating. SEAR letter 1D04H the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. After attempting for a long time, Lu Changsheng finally entered the right state. His mental spirit became lucid, sensing the wisps and strands of colorful spiritual energy around him. Knowing he had completed the first step, sensing the spiritual energy, he then tried to draw the energy into his body. Under his control, the spiritual energy slowly converged towards him, entering his body through the pores all over his skin. This process was very slow, and once the spiritual energy entered the body, it had to circulate a full cycle before a strand of it could remain in the Danshan Qi. While the spiritual energy circulated, it also nourished the body's flesh, veins, and bones, slowly expelling impurities from the body and thus performing a marrow cleansing. The night passed, so this is what having a 9th-grade spiritual root is like. At this rate, breaking through to the first level of Qi refinement will take ages. Looking at the faint trace of cool aura in his Danshan Qi, Lu Changsheng gave a wry smile. And this was while cultivating in a place with a spirit vein. Without a spirit vein, the process would have been even slower. At that moment, Lu Changsheng gained a profound understanding of the difficulties of cultivation. "Sai, looks like I have to rely on the system," Lu Changsheng exhaled deeply. Knowing that relying solely on his own efforts to cultivate was simply unrealistic, the only option left was to depend on the system. "I wonder when the Lu family will arrange a wife for me," Lu Changsheng thought. Ding, ding, ding. It was at that moment the bells in the courtyard rang out. Someone had come. Lu Changsheng left his room and opened the courtyard door. "Lu Changsheng, the Lu family has already organized a reception banquet to welcome and cleanse the dust of travel for you. Follow me," Uncle Fu spoke from the doorway. Behind him were the other immortal seedlings. "A welcome reception." Hearing about this welcome reception, Lu Changsheng had a hunch and nodded. "All right." Then Uncle Fu gathered all 12 immortal seedlings and took them to a spacious and elegant hall within Kingju Villa. There was no one else inside, only 12 seats were arranged, adorned with fine wines and delicacies. After everyone took their seats, it was not long before a stream of graceful and enchanting young ladies entered one by one, proceeding into the hall. Indeed, seeing these ladies, Lu Changsheng immediately knew his guess was right. This welcoming feast, intended to cleanse away the dust of travel, was meant for breeding arrangements. The women entering the hall numbered 50 or 60, all of them pleasant to look at. Although none were as stunning as Lu Myoj, there were still many beauties, comparable to some online celebrities from his previous life. These women had clearly made an effort to dress up, each bearing a unique style. Some had a petite build, with a cute appearance. Some wore simple makeup, gentle and graceful. Some had brows like sharp swords, dressed in vigorous attire, their demeanor spirited and bold. Some were dressed in ornate court attire with their hair coiled up, dignified and elegant. There were also those with ice-cold faces like icebergs, their figures graceful, seductive, and alluring, dressed in diaphanous gauzy fabrics with long legs and high heels, beguiling and tempting. One could say, with so many types available, there was bound to be one to stir your heart. This gesture quite impressive indeed. Mazed by the bevy of beauties before him, Lu Changsheng couldn't help but praise inwardly. He felt that the Lu family was indeed generous in this regard, no two ways about it. They truly were a proper cultivation family. All these ladies are outstanding women from our Qingzhou Lu family's secular branches, not only literate and well-mannered but also virtuous and wise, and well-versed in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, all of them pure. Today, they will provide a warm reception for the gentlemen. You may choose the one you favor, and this old man will arrange the wedding for you, Uncle Fu said. After he finished speaking, he left the hall, leaving only Lu Changsheng and the other 11 with the multitude of Lu family women. There was no need for Lu Changsheng and the others to take the initiative. The women approached their seats on their own. Although they were secular women from the Lu family, most were descendants of cultivators. Coming here was a matter of personal choice, without any coercion involved. The women hoped to select desirable immortal seedlings, bear children with spiritual roots, and thus benefit from association with their offspring. Therefore, in this welcoming and dust-cleansing feast, the women generally had more say in the matter. In this life, Lu Changsheng had the background of a peasant, and in terms of appearance he was quite plain. With his 9th-grade spiritual root, only 3 women approached him. He didn't mind this, and simply embraced all 3 of them. One must learn to be content. Having 3 was fairly good. Moreover, all 3 young ladies were quite attractive. One was pure and lovely, with a playful personality. Another was innocent and charming, giving off a sense of both purity and desire. And the third was gentle in appearance, graceful in character, exuding an air of a well-bred young lady. The first 2 girls looked somewhat similar in features, likely sisters. That would do. In his previous life, if he could have had 3 wives like these, his ancestors would have been bursting with pride. In contrast to Lu Changsheng's initiative, the other 11 were much more resistant. For instance, Li Feiyu, with his handsome and valiant appearance along with a 7th-grade spiritual root, had 7 ladies approach him. However, he only chose 1 lady of exquisite beauty, sending the others away. An hour later, the reception feast concluded. Everyone had made their chosen one selections. Aside from Lu Changsheng, who chose 3, the others only selected 1 or 2. They still had aspirations for cultivation. It was simply because of the contract they signed with the Lu family that they temporarily chose 1 for the sake of formality. They hoped that once their cultivation reached a certain success, they would be able to change their status. Afterward, under Uncle Fu's arrangements, the 12 held a simple wedding banquet that very day. The wedding was kept simple, and once the formalities were completed, it was time for the bridal chamber. My lady, husband X3. In the bridal chamber, Lu Changsheng gazed at the 3 charmingly alluring ladies in front of him and drew the bed curtains closed. This year, Lu Changsheng was 18 and had taken 3 wives. The gentle and well-bred one was named Lu Lanshu. The pure yet charming one was named Lu Zier. The pure and lovely one was named Lu Kinger. They were sisters. Half a month later, Lu Changsheng, you've done well. Not only have you married 3 women from our Lu family, but within half a month you've also gotten Lanshu pregnant. Our Lu family always clearly delineates rewards and punishments. Naturally, we won't shortchange you. Here are your rewards. A lower-grade flying sword. A Qingzhou vestment robe. A bottle of yellow dragon elixir. 100 caddies of spirit rice. Within a grand hall of Qingzhou Villa, Lu Yuanding said to Lu Changsheng. It had already been half a month since Lu Changsheng's wedding day. Knowing his own cultivation had limited effects, Lu Changsheng didn't cultivate much in the past half-month, focusing all his energy on creating offspring. His efforts were not in vain. Among his 3 wives, Lu Lanshu was found to be pregnant. Upon hearing this news, Lu Changsheng was extremely happy and excited inside. Whether in his past life or this one, this was the first time he was going to be a father. Even if the birth of this child was mixed with many utilitarian motives, the joy was heartfelt. The moment he knew he was to be a father, he had already thought of the child's name. If it was a boy, he would be called Ping'an. If a girl, she would be called Xyle. He wished for his child to live in peace and joy. When the patriarch of the Lu family, Lu Yuending, heard this news, he went personally to Qingzhou Villa to commend Lu Changsheng and bestowed upon him generous rewards. A lower-grade magical instrument was worth 50 spirit stones. Vestment robe was worth 30 spirit stones. 100 caddies of spirit rice were worth 10 spirit stones. A bottle of yellow dragon elixir was worth 10 spirit stones. That is to say, the rewards given to Lu Changsheng were equivalent to 100 spirit stones, worth of resources. Other immortal seedlings, upon hearing these rewards, turned red with envy. They looked at Lu Changsheng with eyes full of envy, jealousy, and resentment. No, for their cultivation in the Lu family, the family provided only 2 spirit stones and 10 caddies of spirit rice per month. Now the rewards given to Lu Changsheng were almost the equivalent of 3 years' worth of their resources. Just for being the first to produce a child, he received 3 years' resources. This made their back teeth nearly shatter with frustration. Many thanks to the family head. Lu Changsheng, too, wore a face full of joy as he respectfully expressed his thanks. He hadn't expected that being the first to produce a child would come with such rewards. However, he understood that this was Lu Yuending's way of stimulating others, spurring them to quickly produce offspring as well. You've earned this. Our Lu family never mistreats anyone. For all who beget children, the family head has rewards as well. And if anyone is the first to produce a child with a spiritual root, the family head will give even greater rewards. Lu Yuending surveyed the crowd as he spoke. At these words, everyone felt somewhat pressured, thinking about hastening home to create offspring. Even Li Feiyu was somewhat tempted. However, subsequently, when others bore children, the reward was only a bottle of yellow dragon elixir and 10 caddies of spirit rice, which couldn't compare to Lu Changsheng's initial reward at all. Another month passed, and Lu Changsheng's wife, Lu Qinger, also became pregnant. For the second pregnancy, the family did not give any additional rewards. If rewards were given for each child produced, the Lu family would have been emptied out long ago. Then more than half a month later, Lu Changsheng's third wife, Lu Zier, was also found to be pregnant. In a little over 2 months since entering the Lu family, Lu Changsheng had managed to get all 3 wives pregnant, leaving the other immortal seedlings speechless, wondering if this man didn't need to cultivate at all. Was he that desperate? This was not just due to Lu Changsheng's own tireless efforts, but also because he had been calculating their ovulation periods, and with the help of the pregnancy tonic provided by the Lu family, he maximized the chances of conception. Overall, Lu Changsheng could say with a clear conscience that he had put in his best effort. After all 3 women became pregnant, Lu Changsheng also began to cultivate with a quieted heart. Because all 3 wives were pregnant, Uncle Fu sent 2 maids to serve and take care of the daily life of Lu Changsheng's family. These 2 maids had fair skin and beautiful figures. It was obvious that they were not sent just to serve daily needs. Evidently, seeing his aptitude for reproducing, the Lu family had sent them to encourage more breeding from him. For these 2 maids, Lu Changsheng had no immediate plans. He wanted to have many children, but these things should not be rushed. Slow and steady was the proper course. Constant toil really was harmful to the body. Before starting his cultivation, doing it many times just made him feel a bit drained. But after beginning cultivation, Lu Changsheng was able to perceive clearly that his vital essence was depleting, affecting not only his physical state, but also his cultivation speed, requiring time to recover. This was also why other immortal seedlings were unwilling to recklessly have children. It really would lead to their own ruin. When, in the blink of an eye, more than half a year had passed. I finally made a breakthrough to the first level of qi refinement. Inside the practice room, wearing a Qingzhou vestment robe and sitting cross-legged, Lu Changsheng opened his eyes and exhaled a breath of foul air, his face full of joy. It had been almost 10 months since he came to the Lu family. He had finally completed the process of drawing qi into his body and had broken through to the first level of qi refinement. He had officially become a cultivator. This speed was naturally not fast, but it wasn't very slow either. After all, when he first arrived at the Lu family, he had spent a considerable amount of time having children. There are 9 levels in the qi refinement realm, and the first 3 levels aren't difficult. As long as one persists in cultivation, success will come naturally. Lu Changsheng was able to achieve this speed of breakthrough thanks largely to that bottle of yellow dragon elixir, which saved him several months of hard cultivation. Otherwise, Lu Changsheng estimated he would need another 2 or 3 months to break through to the first level of qi refinement. This also made him realize the importance of financial resources in cultivation. During this period of more than half a year, apart from cultivating, he also tended to other matters. He took the 2 maids sent by Uncle Fu as concubines, and they successfully conceived. In response to this, Uncle Fu sent over 2 more maids with decent appearances. And to reward him, he increased his monthly allowance to 3 spirit stones and 20 jin of spirit rice. Lan Shu must be about to give birth to. Lu Changsheng stood up and adjusted his Qingzhu robe slightly. Although this robe wasn't a magic artifact, it was still quite extraordinary. Once worn, it could automatically adjust in size, always fit perfectly, and had the effects of resisting extreme temperatures and repelling dust. After coming out of retreat, Lu Changsheng spent time with his wives and concubines for a while, then went to visit Li Feiyu's home to catch up on old times. Among all the immortal seedlings who came to the Lu family, he was only on friendly terms with Li Feiyu. Not only because the 2 met at the beginning, but also because Li Feiyu had saved his life on the way to Qingzhou Mountain previously. Through such prolonged contact, Lu Changsheng had learned that although Li Feiyu was reticent, he could be considered a cold-faced but warm-hearted person, worthy of deep friendship. Another half-month later. Don't be nervous, sister-in-law's life here at Qingzhou Villa is nurtured by spiritual energy. Her physique is robust. Giving birth to a child will not be dangerous. Moreover, there's a cultivator to assist the childbirth, so rest assured. Outside the room, as Lu Changsheng listened to Lu Lanchu's wailing inside, his fists clenched and unclenched repeatedly, Li Feiyu offered comforting words beside him. I'm not nervous, I'm just excited, happy. Lu Changsheng took a deep breath in and out as he spoke. But his eyes and thoughts were unsettled, clearly revealing his stubborn front. Have you thought of a name for the child? Li Feiyu asked. Although the child would be raised in the Lu family after birth, as the father, he still had the right to name the child. As for the surname, Lu Changsheng shared the same surname as the Lu family, so there was no need to worry about the surname issue anymore. I've thought about it. If it's a boy, he'll be named Ping'an, and if it's a girl, Zile. Lu Changsheng replied offhandedly, his thoughts still unsettled. Soon after, a clear and loud cry of a baby emerged from the room, startling Lu Changsheng. And just at that moment, a system notification sound abruptly resounded in Lu Changsheng's mind. Congratulations to the host on the birth of your first offspring. You've earned 1 lottery draw chance. It's a lottery. Lu Changsheng, hearing this system notification, was momentarily stunned. He quickly realized that this was the offspring achievement reward from the system. He did not have access to view this achievement. He could only explore it himself. Without looking at the system lottery, Lu Changsheng watched the delivery room with concern. After a short while, the door opened. A woman carrying a bundled-up, rosy and wrinkled infant stepped out of the room. Congratulations, sir, it's a young master. Lu Changsheng reached out to hold the baby, looking at his wrinkled, ruddy face and big, bright eyes, his face revealing a smile that came from the depths of his heart. From today onwards, your name will be Lu Ping'an. My son, Lan Shu, you've worked hard. Lu Changsheng, holding the baby, entered the room and saw Lu Lanchu lying on the bed. He sat beside her and gently took her hand. Although the 2 of them were bound by a marriage of convenience, with no foundation of feelings, it is said that love grows over time. Having spent so much time together, especially now that the child had been born, naturally, some feelings had developed. Husband, Lu Lanchu's pale face showed a touch of a smile as she weakly called out. Don't move, just rest well. Lu Changsheng's voice was soft. Holding the child and looking at his wife at that moment, he felt a sense of happiness in his heart. He thought it would be quite nice to continue like this forever. But he remembered the assassination by the Chen family while on the way to Qingzhou Mountain. The cruel law of the survival of the fittest in this world. Lu Changsheng knew that happiness also needed the protection of strength. Without even looking far, without strength, once he left the Lu family, even his child would not be his. And more importantly, having the fortune to traverse to such a world, with the destiny of cultivation and a system beside him, he wasn't content with a mediocre and ordinary life. Seeing the weak appearance of Lu Lanchu and knowing she needed rest, Lu Changsheng did not talk much. He told her to rest well and handed the baby over to a woman standing by. It wasn't because the baby had to be given to the Lu family right after birth, but because he didn't know how to take care of an infant, so he let the woman look after it. As for the child's spiritual root, it would not manifest until they were 5 or 6 years old, so it could not be tested now. After leaving the birthing room, Lu Changsheng returned to his own room and silently called out, "System, I want to draw a lottery." Immediately, a pale red virtual lottery wheel appeared before his eyes. It was divided into 7 areas: cultivation technique, skills, pet beasts, elixir medicines, magical treasures, and others. It's quite comprehensive. Lu Changsheng looked at the items available for the draw, his face showing delight. The only caveat was that the lottery wheel looked a bit like the roulette from the money-grabbing games of the Penguin Corporation from his previous life. It made him feel unreliable, somewhat panicky. Can good things really come out of this? And besides, the lottery in his previous life depended on spending money, but this life's lottery depended on spending vitality. It felt rather strange to him. Forget it, consider this lottery as the system's gift money. Lu Changsheng didn't overthink and silently said, "Start the lottery." At once, a golden light began to spin on the pale red wheel. After 5 seconds, the wheel slowed down, and under Lu Changsheng's hopeful gaze, the golden light stopped on skills. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining a second-ranked talisman-making skill. The reward has been issued to the system space, and the host can check it at any time. A talisman-shaped light cluster emerged from the big wheel, accompanied by the sound of the system's voice. With a slight movement of his mind, Lu Changsheng saw a talisman-shaped light cluster in the system space, with information appearing on it. Second-rank talisman-making skill. Upon use, you can directly comprehend second-rank full-level talisman-making skill and the corresponding complete collection of talismans. Directly obtained second-rank full-level talisman-making skill. System, I apologize. I admit I was a bit narrow-minded at the start, carrying some bias. When Lu Changsheng saw the information, his expression was full of surprise. He hadn't expected to get something this good on his first try at the lottery. Having been in the Lu family for a while now, he hadn't just focused on having a child and practicing cultivation. He had also enriched himself by learning many things about the cultivation world. He knew how precious the second-ranked talisman-making skill was and its value. Just like in the secular world, cultivators also had many professions and skills. For example, alchemy, artifact refining, talisman making, formation, beast taming, gardening, medicinal cooking, spirit identification, mining, and so on. In his previous life, there was a saying that if you have a skill, you will not starve wherever you go. It applies just the same for cultivators. Moreover, not only will you not starve, but you will also be in high demand, esteemed wherever you go. Because the entry threshold for a cultivator's skills is much higher, it's not something you can learn just because you want to, nor can everyone master it. It depends greatly on talent and wealth. Among all skills, formation, alchemy, artifact refining, and talisman making are especially popular. Second-ranked talisman making corresponds to the talismans of the foundation establishment stage, which is above chi refinement. With this skill, he could completely become an honored guest, a guest elder in various families and powers. Without further thought, Lu Changsheng mentally activated the second-ranked talisman-making skill in the system space. In an instant, a surge of knowledge rushed into his mind. Introduction to talismans. Complete collection of basic talismans. Complete collection of first-ranked talismans. Complete collection of second-ranked talismans. The great art of talisman making. How talismans are made. Talisman making, from beginner to grave. After a while, Lu Changsheng's mind was filled with numerous pieces of knowledge about talismans. He also felt as if he had been drawing and making talismans for dozens of years. He quickly approached his desk, picked up a writing brush, and sketched out a mysterious and complex talisman figure on a piece of paper with fluid grace, as if dragons and snakes were racing across the clouds. This feeling is simply marvelous. It's as if I've been practicing calligraphy and writing for several decades. There's not the slightest bit of stiffness or unfamiliarity. Indeed, anything produced by the system is guaranteed to be a fine product. Looking at the talisman on the paper, Lu Changsheng's face showed a surprised and delighted expression. He wasn't scribbling aimlessly. That was the talisman for a lower-grade first-rank fireball talisman. It was just that, since he hadn't used a talisman brush, talisman paper, spirit ink, or spiritual power, it didn't become an actual talisman. He couldn't quite explain this drawing process himself. It was like eating and drinking water, something he had done countless times before, that had already become muscle memory. With second-rank talisman-making skills, even if I leave the Lu family, I'll be able to stand on my own 2 feet. No worries about not being able to get a wife or support a wife and children. Lu Changsheng took a deep breath, his emotions excited and exuberant. However, after a moment he frowned. But right now, I can't reveal these second-rank talisman-making skills. Otherwise, I won't be able to explain it, and it may even bring trouble. An innocent man incurs blame by possessing a gem. Son-in-law who was eliminated by the immortal sects and has only just started on cultivation. Suddenly mastering talisman-making will definitely give rise to suspicions and invite trouble. Besides, he was currently a son-in-law living at the Lu family's expense. If he revealed his talisman-making skills, who knows what attitude the Lu family would take. They might go from using him as a breeding partner to treating him as a talisman-making tool. I can't rush it. I need to take things slowly. First, I'll buy a set of talisman-making tools and materials to practice making talismans. Then I'll gradually reveal my talent for making talismans at the Lu family, eventually revealing my first and second-ranked talisman master skills in a logical progression. That way, it won't arouse suspicion. Maybe even for my talent in making talismans, the Lu family will value me more and my status will rise. Lu Changsheng took a deep breath, and after pondering for a while, he made up his mind. Now seeing the effect of the system and possessing second-ranked talisman-making skills, he felt more confident about this world and his future. He knew that as long as he was careful, had more children, and caused less trouble, even if he didn't become immortal or an ancestor, his achievements in the future would not be too bad. The next morning, Lu Changsheng went out and took out the magic flying sword that Lu Yuending had rewarded him with before, and headed towards the 100 Treasures Pavilion in Qingzhou Villa. The 100 Treasures Pavilion was akin to a department store. They sold all sorts of things such as magic artifacts, elixir medicines, talismans, spirit rice, spirit vegetables, demon beast meat, and everyday items. Every month, Lu Changsheng would use the spirit stones he received to buy demon beast meat and spirit vegetables from the 100 Treasures Pavilion. Elixir medicines were effective but too expensive. For someone as poor as him, eating spirit vegetables and demon beast meat was more cost-effective. Today, he came to the 100 Treasures Pavilion, intending to purchase a set of talisman-making tools and materials. As for the flying sword, he was out of money and planned to sell it for cash. Shopkeeper, do you sell talisman pens, talisman paper, and spirit ink for making talismans here? Upon arriving at the 100 Treasures Pavilion, Lu Changsheng asked the shopkeeper, who was lounging on a recliner. What do you need these items for? The shopkeeper was a gray-haired old man and also a cultivator. I want to learn talisman making, so I plan to buy some materials to give it a try. Lu Changsheng replied, Learn talisman making. The old man appeared to hear a joke and couldn't help laughing. Looking at Lu Changsheng, he said, Do you know how difficult it is to learn talisman making? There weren't many cultivators in Qingzhou Villa, only about 100 or so, and he knew most of them. Lu Changsheng, being a son-in-law who had fathered 5 children in 1 year, had gained some notoriety in Qingzhou Villa, leaving a relatively deep impression on the shopkeeper. I don't know, but my talent is limited. Continuing to cultivate like this, I can basically see my limits, so I might as well try learning a craft. Lu Changsheng shook his head, smiling wryly. He had prepared all these excuses the night before. It's good that you have this thought, but I advise you not to waste your money. Any newcomer who wants to learn talisman making is likely to fail 100 times when they start, and if they have poor aptitude, even failing a few 100 times isn't surprising. That's still for the same talisman. If you try making a different talisman, although it gets somewhat easier, the failure rate is still shockingly high. For a novice to become an elementary talisman master, it requires thousands upon thousands of attempts. Think about the costs involved for yourself. The shopkeeper, seeing that Lu Changsheng was diligent in the Lu family, having made 5 women pregnant within a year, meant well with his advice. Lu Changsheng, upon hearing this, was also somewhat surprised. Although he had acquired second-grade talisman-making skills through the system, he was truly unaware of the specific difficulties involved in talisman making. He had just realized that making talismans was much harder than he had imagined. For a rookie, it took tens of thousands of practice attempts just to get started and become an elementary talisman master. This elementary talisman master refers to a first-grade talisman master of inferior quality. First-grade talisman masters are categorized based on the talismans. They can draw into first-grade talisman masters of inferior quality, middle grade, superior grade, and a top-level talisman master. Second-grade talisman masters are also classified the same way. Lu Changsheng, having obtained second-grade talisman-making skills, was at full mastery of the second grade. That is, a top-level second-grade talisman master. For a newbie to elevate their talisman-making skills to the second grade, the time, effort, and money spent are simply immeasurable. Even dedicating a lifetime of effort might not be enough to achieve it. At this moment, Lu Changsheng felt that his second-grade talisman-making skill was far more precious than he had imagined. "Shopkeeper, I still want to give it a try," Lu Changsheng said, with a determined look on his face. No matter how difficult it was, what did it have to do with him? The harder it was to become a talisman master, the more valuable this skill would be. "All right, since you insist on buying, how could I refuse to sell to you?" Seeing that Lu Changsheng was persistent, the shopkeeper did not try to persuade him further. To give advice was already a kind gesture from him. "You know, young people, they won't stop until they hit the south wall. A regular wolf hair talisman brush, 20 spirit stones each, can be used approximately 200 times. First-grade regular talisman paper, 1 spirit stone for a pack of 10 sheets. First-grade regular spiritual ink, 1 spirit stone per box, can be used about 50 times." The shopkeeper quoted the prices. Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng nodded and took out his flying sword, saying, "Shopkeeper, would you please appraise this flying sword for me? Is this the one the family head rewarded you with?" The shopkeeper was somewhat surprised, having not expected that Lu Changsheng would sell his flying sword just to make talismans. But then again, as a man who had married into the family, where else would he get the money if not by selling the flying sword? "Indeed," Lu Changsheng nodded. "For this flying sword, I won't shortchange you, 50 spirit stones." The shopkeeper stretched out a hand. "Deal. Then please give me a wolf hair talisman brush, 10 packs of talisman paper, and 2 boxes of spiritual ink," Lu Changsheng said, nodding and placing the flying sword on the counter. The shopkeeper indeed did not underquote him. If sold elsewhere, the flying sword would fetch just a few more spirit stones. Considering that Lu Lanchu had given birth and Lu Zier and Lu Kinger were also about to give birth, Lu Changsheng added, "Please also give me 1 gin each of ginseng, licorice, angelica, Solomon's seal, and goji berries." These were medicinal herbs grown by the Lu family themselves, categorized as spirit plants, with the effect of nourishing the primordial spirit and replenishing energy. "All right, that comes to a total of 37 spirit stones. I'll give you 13 spirit stones as change," the shopkeeper said as he put away the flying sword, took out the items Lu Changsheng had requested, and gave him 13 spirit stones. "Thank you, shopkeeper." Lu Changsheng expressed his gratitude and left with his purchases. Inside the study, Lu Changsheng neatly arranged his entire set of talisman brushes, talisman paper, and spiritual ink on the desk. Beside them, there were also copies of Introduction to Talismans and complete collection of basic talismans. The skill information given by the system included many kinds of talismans. But to put on an act, it must be thorough. It couldn't be that he became a talisman master without ever looking at a book right. That would be a bit unreasonable. Though for the sake of caution, Lu Changsheng decided to put on an act and made a trip to the Lu family's library, spending 1 spirit stone to borrow 2 books about talismans. Materials for making 100 talismans cost about 22 spirit stones. SYRCH the novel. F. Iyer. Edit website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. A first-grade inferior quality basic talisman can be sold for 1-2 spirit stones. If all are made into talismans, the lowest profit would be 5-fold, and at most it could be 10-fold. If all can be made into first-grade, middle-grade talismans, then the profit could go up to over 20-fold. Tusk, such high profit indeed. My talisman making belongs to full mastery at 2nd grade, so to draw all these materials into first-grade, middle-grade talismans will be a piece of cake. Lu Changsheng skillfully ground and mixed the spirit ink, calculating in his mind. Different grades of talismans required different materials. The wolf hair talisman brush he had bought was the most common type, suitable for beginners to use, and could only be used to draw basic talismans and lower and middle-grade first-grade talismans. It wasn't entirely true that it couldn't be used to draw upper-grade and supreme first-grade talismans. It just greatly affected the success rate of the talisman, and the brush was prone to wear and tear, leading to its disposal. Generally, a talisman master who could draw middle, upper, and supreme first-grade talismans wouldn't care about this amount of money. They would always try to buy the best materials and tools to increase their success rate in making talismans. Similarly, the talisman paper and spirit ink were also divided into ordinary, advanced level, and supreme, 3 grades. The ordinary kind was at most used for drawing middle-grade, first-grade talismans. The advanced level was suitable for drawing middle and upper-grade first-grade talismans. The supreme kind was suitable for drawing upper-grade and supreme first-grade talismans. After grinding and mixing the ink, Lu Changsheng laid out the talisman paper, took the talisman brush in hand, took 2 deep breaths to calm his mental spirit, and began to try making talismans. If he were a beginner, he would also have to bathe and change into new clothes and perform rituals like adjusting his body, mind, and breath, among others. But Lu Changsheng was experienced, and these practices were already second nature to him, so naturally he did not need them. He dipped the talisman brush into the ink. Afterwards, spiritual power surged from inside his body to his palm, through to the talisman brush in his hand, and then to the tip of the brush, making the tip soaked in spirit ink amid a faint luminescence. As the tip touched the blank talisman paper, he began to move it swiftly and boldly, splashing the ink with great fluency. The whole process was smooth and uninterrupted, without a moment's delay. Lu Changsheng lifted his hand. One could see a layer of light emerge on the talisman paper on the table, emanating faint fluctuations of spiritual energy, which quickly solidified the spirit ink. After a short while, the spirit ink solidified. The light on the talisman paper circulated and then gradually dimmed, disappearing from sight. The lower-grade first-grade talisman, the flame bullet talisman, was complete. Seeing this scene, Lu Changsheng also let out a long breath, and a smile appeared on his lips. Acquiring related skills was one thing, but successfully making a talisman himself was another. Making talismans really depletes spiritual power. With my level of chi refinement, I can at most draw 2 or 3 lower-grade first-grade talismans. If I were to draw a middle-grade first-grade talisman, I reckon I could only manage one at most. Lu Changsheng examined the flame bullet talisman he held in his hands closely. By injecting a trace of spiritual power, one could activate the talisman, releasing a fire bullet. As for its power, it was about the same as the flame bullet technique of the 3rd level energy refinement. This was the formidable aspect of talismans. Lu Changsheng, only at the 1st level of chi refinement, would deplete all his spiritual power using a single flame bullet technique. But with that same amount of spiritual power, he could draw 2 or 3 talismans with the power of the flame bullet technique at the 3rd level of energy refinement. Straight away, Lu Changsheng drew another featherweight talisman and rejuvenation insignia. Both were lower-grade first-grade talismans. Feeling that continuing to draw would not only deplete his spiritual power, but also tire his mental spirit, Lu Changsheng stored the 3 talismans away and began to sit in meditation to cultivate. The next day, Lu Changsheng opened his eyes. After sitting in meditation all night, his spiritual power and energy had fully recovered. Perhaps the act of drawing talismans the previous day had consumed his spiritual power and mental spirit to some extent, making the cultivation last night more effective than usual. Talisman making depletes spiritual power and spirit, yet it seems to slightly assist cultivation. Lu Changsheng was somewhat surprised, but he didn't pay too much attention to this slight effect. He came to the desk, picked up the wolf hair talisman brush, and prepared to try drawing a middle-grade first-grade talisman. Without hesitation, he dipped the brush in ink and began to draw. The touch of the brush emitted a faint spiritual light, wildly scribbling on the talisman paper, flowing smoothly and successfully without any mishap. However, the moment he finished the stroke, sweat appeared on Lu Changsheng's forehead. His face turned pale, and he looked completely drained, slumping back into the chair behind him. After a long while, Lu Changsheng let out a long breath, sat up, and picked up the talisman from the table. A middle-grade first-grade talisman, the golden light insignia. Once activated, it released a layer of golden light to protect oneself, capable of withstanding a strike from the 6th level of energy refinement. Right now, a middle-grade first-grade talisman is still a bit strenuous for me, Lu Changsheng thought, as he stored and hid the talisman away. In the days that followed, besides cultivating, he also took up making talismans. Almost every day, he drew 2 or 3 lower-grade first-grade talismans, or 1 middle-grade first-grade talisman. He kept all these talismans hidden in the cupboard in his study, to be taken out when the opportunity arose. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Lu Changsheng's wife, Lu Qinger, gave birth as well. It was a son. This time, the system did not appear to grant any reward. Having tasted the sweetness of the system's rewards, Lu Changsheng felt somewhat disappointed. However, upon reflection, it seemed normal, if childbirth triggered an achievement and earned a reward every time. There would be no need to raise children at all. One could just keep having them and take off oneself. After the child was born, Lu Changsheng did not immediately name him. He planned to wait for half a month, until the child of Lu Zier was also born to name them together. This was also the idea of his wife, who wanted to name the children of the two sisters at the same time. For such a small request, Lu Changsheng naturally agreed. 20 days later, Lu Zier's child was born. It was a daughter. The system still did not respond. Presumably a certain number had to be reached to trigger the achievement reward. But Lu Changsheng was still very happy. It was not a matter of favoring boys over girls, but rather that he was now blessed with both a son and a daughter. For these two children, Lu Changsheng and his wife discussed and decided to name the boy Lu Wuyu and the girl Lu Wayu. The meaning was the same as the previously thought of Ping'an and Zile. They hoped their children could grow up safely and carefree, and that his own path of cultivation could also proceed smoothly without trouble. But a month later, on this day, Lu Changsheng went to the 100 Treasures Pavilion, took out 5 unpromoted basic talismans, and asked, "Shopkeeper, do you take this cleansing talisman, and how much is it worth?" Reveal his identity as a talisman master would naturally require a gradual process. Though after spending nearly 3 months, he finished drawing on the 10 stacks of talisman paper he had bought, with Lu Changsheng keeping 5 blank talismans and crafting them into the simplest of the basic talismans, the cleansing talisman. After all, the shopkeeper had said that it was normal for a novice in talisman making to fail 100 times. So if out of 100 attempts at making cleansing talismans, he succeeded in 5, it might be considered a bit of talent, right? Cleansing talisman. On hearing this, the shopkeeper was stunned. He looked at Lu Changsheng and remembered the latter's sale of his flying sword to practice talisman making. Then, showing surprise with some disbelief, he said, "You made spirit talismans out of the 100 sets of materials you bought last time, and you made 5 of them. Although the cleansing talisman is the simplest of the basic talismans, for a novice who had never touched talisman making, succeeding in creating 5 talismans in 100 tries was quite remarkable. Yes, I kept failing at first, but after one success, it felt much better, so I made these 5 talismans. I wanted to ask the shopkeeper if these talismans are worth anything." Lu Changsheng said, thinking that he might often have to act in the future. Lu Changsheng had also been practicing his acting skills in front of a mirror during these days, so that he could appear more natural when speaking nonsense. "Let me take a look at the talismans," said the shopkeeper. Faced with this statement, he was somewhat at a loss for words. He hadn't expected Lu Changsheng, a breeding outsider of the family, to possess such talent in talisman making. Lu Changsheng placed the talismans he was holding onto the countertop. Subsequently, the shopkeeper picked up the talismans and examined them. As a cultivator, he naturally had some understanding of talismans. He could tell that, although the lines of these 5 talismans were not very smooth and the quality was not high, they were indeed successful and had no issues. The shopkeeper said with some emotion, "To be able to craft 5 talismans out of 100 sets of materials, even if they are the same type of spirit talisman, shows that you have considerable talent in talisman making. But cleansing talismans are just basic talismans and are not worth much, as few people need them." He paused before continuing. "However, our Lu family has an encouragement plan to motivate family members to learn skills. For such basic talismans, we're willing to buy them for 1 spirit stone per 3 talismans. Although you are an outsider to the family, you can also enjoy this benefit," said the shopkeeper. "As basic talismans have limited uses, mostly just for daily life, they are not very impactful for cultivators. Thus, not many buy them, and the price is low. 1 spirit stone for 3 talismans. Hearing this price, Lu Changsheng had also anticipated it. After all, many basic first-grade talismans were only worth 1 spirit stone apiece. With this price in mind, his 100% success rate in talisman making could still earn him 8 spirit stones. But it was not possible for him to make money this way. Not to mention a 100% success rate in talisman crafting was too outrageous. If he had to toil for 2 to 3 months just to earn this small amount, he would be treating himself like a slave. However, Lu Changsheng had no intention of making money through basic talismans. He presented these 5 basic talismans merely to showcase his talent for talisman making. "All right." Lu Changsheng placed 3 cleansing talismans on the counter. Then he took out 11 spirit stones and said, "Shopkeeper, please give me 10 stacks of talisman paper and 2 boxes of spirit ink. I'll take all 5 of your talismans, and I'll charge you 2 spirit stones." The shopkeeper, seeing Lu Changsheng's gift for talisman crafting, was willing to offer a deal. Although he was old, he also had descendants. If Lu Changsheng indeed became a talisman master, There might come a time when they would need his help. Thank you, shopkeeper. Lu Changsheng immediately expressed his gratitude, placed the remaining 2 talismans on the counter, and took back 1 spirit stone. The shopkeeper accepted the talismans and the spirit stone, handing over 10 stacks of talisman paper and 2 boxes of spirit ink to Lu Changsheng. Thank you, shopkeeper. Lu Changsheng thanked him once more and turned to leave. Remarkable indeed. What a pity he's not a Lu family disciple. Watching Lu Changsheng walk away, the shopkeeper shook his head and sighed. If he had been a blood descendant of the Lu family with such a talent for talisman crafting, the family would definitely be willing to spend resources to cultivate him. But after all, Lu Changsheng was a foreign family member, a son-in-law, and not considered one of their own. Late at night. Afterwards, Lu Changsheng looked at the jade-like body stretched out on the big bed. Sitting up, he took a cleansing talisman from beside the bed and slapped it on himself. Instantly, a breeze blew, whisking away the stickiness on his body, leaving him feeling refreshed. These cleansing talismans are quite useful. Lu Changsheng was rather satisfied after testing the cleansing talisman. On the bed, Lu Lanchu, with her face flushed from the exertion and her eyes lustrous with intoxication, saw Lu Changsheng use the talisman to cleanse his body and said softly, "Husband, this is too wasteful, let your wife attend to you." "It's fine, these are self-drawn by me, not really worth much." Lu Changsheng waved his hand and said, "You drew these talismans." Lu Lanchu's lips parted slightly in surprise upon hearing this, her gentle face showing astonishment. Over the past few months, the fact that Lu Changsheng had often been drawing talismans in his study was something she was naturally aware of as one of his wives. Although she herself didn't practice cultivation, living in such a family environment, she had heard about it. She knew that talisman making was difficult, and being able to create talismans was considered very impressive. Initially, like the others in her group who had married the group of immortal seedlings, aside from the rewards given by the Lu family, they mainly took the plunge in the hopes of riding on their children's coattails. They didn't hold much expectation or desire regarding their husbands, because it was clear from the start that these immortal seedlings were highly unlikely to achieve anything. But understanding was one thing. If their husband turned out to be capable, that would, of course, be more than welcome. Whether for future livelihoods, conversations with sisters, or returning to the secular world, it was a matter of pride. After all, besides children bringing honor to their mothers, wives can also gain prestige through their husbands. Yes, your husband seems to have some talent in the domain of talisman making. Once I become a talisman master, I promise to give you all a good life, Lu Changsheng said gently with a smile. There was no need to keep hidden matters related to talismans. It was something he would eventually reveal. The Lu family might even investigate and inquire about his talisman making from those close to him. So there was no point in concealing it. Divulging some of this information to his wives might help keep the harmony in the inner chambers. Your wife believes in you, Lu Lanchu replied softly, looking at Lu Changsheng with eyes full of tenderness.